Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to play around with some zippers today, and we're going to talk about the different styles of zippers and then the feet that go along with them. Because zippers are a lot easier to do if you are using the right foot for the zipper that you want to work with. Now, we've always had these traditional zippers that you'll find in the craft stores, and these are the zippers that we would put in most garments. But if you're looking for something that is a little more invisible, we have invisible zippers. Obviously, that's why they're called invisible zippers. And the big difference between an invisible zipper and the regular zippers is that on a regular zipper, the teeth are showing on the outside, and on an invisible zipper, the teeth are hidden behind. Now, I tend to use invisible zippers for a lot more types of things. Like I put one in this pillow. So if you look at the pillow and you can check all the seams, you'll see there's a little fringe here, but you don't see the zipper at all. It's hidden. And that's what I love. So if I'm making a pillow and I really want to be able to not see the zipper or not interfere in any way, then I will use an invisible zipper. Here you can see the little tag that's there, but look at even with the piping, it is a yellow zipper, but it's hidden right there in the seam, and you don't need to worry about seeing it. It doesn't disrupt your design of what you're making. So in the vest that's behind me, this is a vest. I love the fabric for this vest. It was really kind of like a large poppy print that was scattered out, and it's a very simple vest, but it does call for a zipper down the front of it. And I was going to use an invisible zipper but it has to be a separating zipper, right? So believe it or not, you can buy invisible zippers that are separating. But when I try to put them back together, like on a jacket, when we have a jacket that's separating, they open up very easily. They go back together very easily. My experience with the invisible zippers that are separating is they come apart just fine, but putting them back together to re-zip it back up really is a little bit more tedious than I want to. So I think I'm going to go with a regular zipper for that. The nice thing about something like this, and I'm going to show you the back of it. It's kind of a real bold design where you have this very large piece. I went around with my serger, the Amber Air, and serged all the pieces first. It was just 3 pieces, and then sewed it up because this is the first time I'm using that pattern. But when it comes to trying a new pattern for the first time, sometimes you've got to think through what is really going to work for you and what zipper is the right piece. We're going to start with looking at the invisible zipper feet and how you would put in an invisible zipper into a garment, into something that you're making. And then we're going to look at some projects. There are a lot of projects that are not just pillows, but a lot of bags and a lot of different kinds of zippers that you would use for something like that. For example, this is a purse zipper that has 2 tags for it. So imagine if this was a knapsack, then you could open it up from there and open it, and then you could have the top of your knapsack open. Most of these zippers are really easy to come by. And then the last type of zipper we have is the crafting zipper. And a crafting zipper is usually got a much wider tape. And when you're looking at it, let me just pull up a couple of different ones here. When you look at them, this one's got metallic coils and nice fancy pulls to them. The nice thing about these is because they have a wider tape, you can use them in a lot of different crafting ways. You can also be able to mix the sizes and the colors of them. So for example, here I have the same size coil, but I've taken one of the blue and one of the turquoise and put them together. So it gives it a whole new dynamic look to the garment you're putting together. Maybe it even corresponds to something where you might have one color fabric on one side and one on the other. It kind of just gives you a lot of extra added interest by playing with that. Now these are called zippers by the yard. And you can get these at your local craft stores. A lot of quilt stores are carrying them now. But the nice thing is that these go on and off very easily. So you can mix and match them, and you can sew this together in ways that make them really innovative when you're talking about new projects that you're going to do. And I'm going to show you a few of them in the next while. We're going to have, I have 2 or 3 different projects that I think you're going to love. So we're going to switch over to our camera and we're going to look at the feet that we are going to investigate today. So this zipper foot is got the letter E on it. That is the foot that comes with almost all our Husqvarna Viking machines. This is a standard foot that comes with your machine. Next to that, we have the invisible metal foot. And this one is really nice. You'll see there's a little triangle that sticks out, juts out from there. That's what helps keep the teeth pushed aside and makes it easier for you to do a good job. My personal favorite is the clear one, because then you can see the teeth underneath, and I just find it's a little bit easier. But either one of them work really well with invisible zippers. And I'm going to use the clear one today. And then the last one we have is the narrow edge zipper foot. And what's different about these 2 feet is, if you look at the E foot that comes with your machine, it's a very wide foot and it's got 2 bars. 1 bar is on the left and 1 bar is on the right. So depending upon where you're going to be sewing, you would flip it over there. Here you have the same type of thing. The bar is behind. And the reason why it is so effective is when you're sewing a zipper, let me just put the teeth down here like this. Because it is long, it tends to kind of keep the zipper in place before you get to it and also behind it. And so it stops it from moving left or right. And that one is a really nice choice. And most people that I know who love to sew zippers have bought the narrow edge zipper foot because it just gives them a little more control over the zipper. So we're going to put on the invisible zipper. And we're going to look at our screen on our machine. All right. Now, there is no place where you can bring the thread down. So I'll show you how to bring that down afterwards. But let's switch over to our screen. Today, I'm sewing on the Sapphire 85. It just came to my sewing room and I got opened up for the very first time today. So I'm kind of excited to be playing with it. Now, like most of our newer machines that have the JoyOS Advisor, any of the ones that are Wi-Fi compatible that have the JoyOS Advisor, there is an option for zippers. And you can choose the fabric. Like, for example, if I say woven light and then zippers, it will show me the 3 different types of zippers that you can do. And it will give you the instructions. Like if you're going to use an invisible zipper, it will tell you what to do. It will give you all the instructions and it will recommend the clear invisible zipper foot. It's an optional accessory. But it will really give you all the instructions and also videos to be able to show you kind of how to set it up. And if you've never put in a zipper before, this is a really nice idea. And we'll go in. They're showing you changing to the invisible zipper foot. So if you have a machine that has the ability to select the fabric, and almost all Husqvarna Vikings do, when you select the fabric, so if I go to woven light, it'll only recommend an invisible zipper. Other options like woven heavy or woven medium, there will be different options there that I can go in and watch and read all about it. But today you're here with me, so I'm going to show you my tips and techniques when I'm working. Now, the first thing that I like to do when I'm working with a zipper and sewing it for the very first time is I will usually mark on my zipper a line that goes across the top on the back. Because when we're putting our zipper in place, and I'll move this out of the way here. And I'm going to start, I'll put this on a piece of fabric like this, okay? So when I'm sewing this, the wrong side should be face up. So if you go to the trouble of marking a line on the fabric before you separate it, before you do anything, then you know that this little pull is going to be in the right place. So having that line on the back saves you a lot of trouble. There is a little plastic tie off at the beginning of that zipper. It's a personal choice if you want to keep that or you want to start where I've drawn the line. I'm going to start where I've drawn the line. Now, when you have a zipper like this, before you start, you'll notice that the teeth, they can flip back and forth. And I'm going to come back over here for a second. I just want to show you a little bit more close up. So on the zipper, the invisible zipper, these teeth are folded back. They automatically revolve around so you don't see them on the front. And in the instructions that when you get these in a package, the instructions say that what you should do before you start is go onto the back side and press the teeth so they sit flat. So basically what you're doing is you're pushing the teeth to the front. And I know that's really small, you can't really see that. But when you're ironing it, you're basically ironing those teeth to the front. That is a very, very important part of using an invisible zipper foot, because what that does is it sets the teeth right into the groove of that foot. The clear plastic foot has got a groove underneath it. There's two grooves, one on the left and one on the right. And what you're aiming for is to have that groove, the teeth sit in that groove. So if you haven't rolled it back and pressed it from behind, then when you go to sew, your stitching is going to be very, very close to the teeth, and you will have trouble opening and closing the zipper. So don't skip that part. As much as it's tempting to just go for it and start sewing, it's really important that you press those teeth back. It makes all the difference in the world. So I have taken this zipper and I've pressed the teeth back to the other side. So we're going to start and we're going to go back to the machine and we're going to start sewing. So remember how I said that there is two grooves underneath here, just like a piping foot has got a groove. There's one that's on the left of this piece that's jutting out and one that's on the right. Let me zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to see if I can get in there a little closer for you. So my fabric is going to go underneath, but usually what I like to do is I'm going to start my zipper. See, I've marked that line there for me to start, and I'm going to line up. This is going to help me to know that I'm starting and stopping in the right place. Now, the teeth have to be, wait a second here. Hold on while I get this sorted out here. So both sides of the zipper have that line on it, and when I'm ready to start, I'm going to start my foot farther back because it's going to help the teeth get set into that channel. And then when I start sewing on my fabric, I know that it's going to be the perfect place to go. So right now you can see my thread is up above. I can either put the needle up down, and now I'm going to bring it back up, and that will bring up the bobbin thread, but it won't do anything for the, it won't let me pull this down. Okay. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to put the needle down. And I'm not going to hold the thread. I'm just going to let the thread be there. I'm going to put the needle up, and then I'm going to lift the foot up. And now that thread can get pulled underneath the foot. And you'll only do it a couple of times before you realize what I'm talking about. All right, so now I'm putting the foot down. The teeth are just to the left of that jutted out piece that's in the front. All right, and I'm starting a little farther back just so that I can set it. Now, the nice thing about this foot is when you start sewing, that piece that juts out from the front is pushing the teeth and keeping it flat. So as I'm going, I don't have to fight it. It's just staying right where it needs to be. And all I'm doing is making sure my fabric underneath is where I need it to be. So that's pretty easy. If I know that I need 6 inches, I'm gonna go only a little bit, and then I'm gonna reverse it and go back, and then I can use my selective thread cutter. Now, when you are sewing a zipper in, it's always a good idea to buy a zipper longer than what you need. Right now, I'm going to go and do the other side. Okay, so I'm going to put another piece and sew the other side. So this time the teeth are going to go in the groove on the right. One second here. And I'm going to match up that same line that I drew with my top of my fabric. All right, it's got to go like this. The teeth are down. Whoops, that can't be, can it? I've got to see that right side up. So hold on a second. Let me just get this pulled up here, because this is, when you're looking at the zipper, right? Before you go and sew the next side, you only want to do this once. So when you're doing the zipper, do the first side that you want to do, and then pull the zipper up before you go, and you just assume you know what you're going to be doing. Now, when you see that, wait a second here. There we go. So now I know I have on the back side, I've got the 2 marks, and now I'm going to be sewing the zipper on the other side. So yes, I'll show the back of the foot. Let me just switch over here. All right. And I'll see if I can get it up nice and close. The metal foot, do you see there's 2 channels? There's a channel on the left in the middle and a channel on the right. And there's a metal bar that comes up between them. The plastic foot looks exactly the same. And it's very easy with the plastic foot, very easy for you to see the groove that your zipper teeth need to go into. So it kind of naturally falls into place. And this plastic piece that juts up from the front, it forces the teeth to stay where they need to be. So you don't have to be pushing or pulling. The teeth automatically go where they need to be. Now, the nice thing about the invisible feet is there's only one set to go onto the machine. So with the other ones, because you have 2 of them, you have to guess, do you want to go left or right? Now, the other thing that I want you to notice in all of these feet, the invisible feet, it doesn't have a little circle. It's got an oval. And that's because when you're working with fabric that might be thicker, like a velvet or corduroy, or you've got batting in there, you may find that you don't want the needle to be right up against the teeth because you need room to open it. So by having the ability to change your needle placement, you can move the needle a little bit more to the left or a little bit more to the right. And when I do that, I'll go on my machine. The button to move my needle left or right, you can usually have at least a couple of different clicks that will move the needle to the left or the right. So you can make the needle closer or farther apart when you're doing your stitching of the zipper. So when I come back here, that was one of my lessons I learned from putting an invisible zipper into this pillow. I did such a great job with it that I really have to feel for where the tag is. It's right here. All right. Now, because of the fringe and because the fabric is velvet, when I go to open it, I don't have it's not easy to open it because the stitching is so close to the zipper. I did not account for the thickness of the fabric. So if you're working with a regular cotton or a linen or something like that, then leaving the needle in the center position is perfect. But if you're working with a heavier fabric that you know has got some bulk to it, or there's batting in it, then move the needle away from the teeth 1 or 2 notches, and then that will allow you to have a little more room to pull the zipper up. This one, it is just absolutely amazing. People can watch this and look at it for 20 minutes and they still can't see. I have another pillow inside there, believe it or not. But it is kind of nice to know that when you're doing your zippers, that you have the ability to move the needle to the left or the right, depending upon what the thickness of your fabric is. So always do a test. Like I just did that test with my first side. I put it up, and now I'm ready to lay down my next side. I'm going to put the right side of my fabric to the right side of my zipper, and then I'm going to be ready to sew that next piece. And because I have the line marked there, I know that I don't have to really worry too much. I know I'm going to be starting in the right place. That line does a few different things for me. It's not just making sure that that I'm starting in the right place, but if I've got a very long zipper that I'm doing, I might put, like on this one here, I put lines in a couple of different places so that after I put them together, I can make sure that they line up. Then I know the zipper is not going to be wavy. If you've ever had an experience putting in a wavy zipper, a lot of times what people do is they sew one side down and then they start at the other end and come back the other way. And that is really not going to be working very well for you. It's always important to start the zipper from the top and go down, and then go to the other side and sew the other side down, and have them both going in the same direction. And you're going to get less distortion that way, and your zipper is not going to ripple your fabric. You'll only do that a couple of times before you realize, okay, this isn't working. So it's just save yourself time and always start the zipper from the very top. The other thing else that you've noticed is I always buy zippers that are longer than what you need. It only costs you a few cents extra to get, a longer zipper. If your pattern calls for a zipper that's, say, 20 inches, I would buy a 24-inch or 22-inch, because then that allows you to pull the metal pull completely out of the way, and you don't have to worry if you're crossing that you're going to be hitting that metal at the top or the bottom. And especially when it comes to bag making, that makes all the difference in the world. So there's a question: would you need to use the wide hole stitch plate? Yes. When you are using, if you're moving the needle at all, I would be using the wide hole stitch plate just in case. But you need to recognize that that hole is not very wide. So you're going to experiment, move the needle. You can turn the hand wheel down and see if it's touching. And if it's not touching, then you know you're good. You don't use stabilizer when you're putting a zipper in unless your fabric is very, very thin and very fragile. So there are times when you're working with a fabric, some different silks, where it's so thin that the feet teeth might even leave an indent on your silk. So in that case, you might use a light wash away. You can just cut yourself a strip and put that in. And when you're working, the lighter the fabric you're working with, the more important it is to go with an invisible zipper, because the other zippers that are more standard zippers that have the bigger teeth to them, they will drag your fabric down, and you will not be happy with the look of it when you're working with a very light fabric. So if you haven't done an invisible zipper, it only takes 20 seconds to really sew one side and 20 seconds to sew the other. It's not difficult, but having the right foot makes all the difference in the world. So if you don't have an invisible zipper foot, then you cannot come as close and you will not see it. When I'm going to go and I'm going to add the other side to that, and when I pull the zipper up and down, you won't be seeing the zipper. You're only going to see the fabric that's on the front of your garment or your pillow, whatever it is you're making. And if there's any other questions, let me know, because I'm happy to stop and answer questions. Now, there's other ways of doing zippers too. Like, for example, this was a fun zipper where I laid the zipper on top of my fabric, and then I did a decorative stitch on either side. And that kind of gives it just a really funky, different look. So you'll see a lot of garments these days where they have the zippers posted, stitched on the very outside of your garments, and they look a lot funkier than this pillow does. But they that is a fashion style, right? So there's no right or wrong anymore when it comes to things like that. When it comes to an invisible zipper, that's the main place where you're going to find that there are some rules, because you need to be able to get close, but you need also to be able to move it up and down. So I'm going to go back over, and we're going to go and sew the other side of that fabric onto our zipper. All right, so here is my zipper. And I always like to kind of start by the way that I think it needs to go. This is the front. And so my fabric needs to go right sides together. All right. So I'm going to put, wait a second here. Let me just get this set up so you can see it a little better. I'm going to come over here. All right. So this is my fabric. All right. There's my zipper. That's the right side of the zipper. And my fabric is going to come on top like this. The teeth are never going to be on the outside of the raw edge. The teeth are always going to be inside. So see how I kind of just laid it out and placed it there? That's a lot better to do than just go to the sewing machine and try and guess where it's going to be. The other thing you can do is if you'd like to be able to have this anchored in place, and I'll show you this afterwards. Let me do this. All right. All right. So it's coming here like this. And I'm going to come back over and I'll sew the other side. So the very first thing is I line up my line that I've drawn. And now the teeth are going to the right. And I can put my foot down. And if I don't see that the teeth are right up against that piece that's jutting out, then I know that it's not going to be in the channel. The teeth go right in that groove, which is just next to the piece that's jutting out. You really can't go wrong if you pay attention to the teeth being right next to that piece that's jutting out. That is your guide to make sure that you are in the right place. And now when I start sewing, this time I didn't bring the thread down, so I'm going to start a little slower. Make sure it ties off. All right, I've got my reverse on, so I'm going to go forward. And I usually like to lock the top and the bottom down, go a few stitches more, and then go backwards. This is garment sewing technology, not embroidery. So we're using a regular sewing thread, not a decorative thread. And we're going to go and lock that stitch down because there's going to be a lot of pressure on that zipper. And so now I'm going to go forward. And here I haven't, my zipper is still open, closed. So I'm just going to bring that down a little bit. All right. And that's the nice thing about having the zipper that is longer than what you need. So you really can see that this is just straightforward sewing. Now, what is important is where you stop on one side, you stop the same place on the other, right? So if you knew that you needed to have 6 inches of zipper, I could have put a mark at that point, and now it would have been very easy to know where to stop. And then I'm going to go back and lock it in and then cut. And then we can go and test to see if I did a good job or not. So the zipper is longer. Right now, I have 2 pieces. So let's pretend that this is a skirt that I'm making, because this is the kind of thing that you would do an invisible zipper for. Usually go and press it. Now, if you see when you zip it up that it won't zip, that's because your needle is too close to the teeth. And it's really a shame that this is white on white, so you can't see it. So there it is. All right. See, you don't see the zipper at all. Let me come up there a little bit closer. What you're seeing is just the fabric seams. And when you go and press it, it will be absolutely perfect. And there's no fabric, no zipper is showing at all. If I pull it really, really, really tight, you can see that tiny little bit of sliver of beige fabric that's underneath there. Now, if it's something you know that you're going to be using a lot, and you got, maybe this is somebody that you don't want to, you think is going to be rough on their fabric, you're probably going to want to have that needle moved over 1 notch. Do you see how tight that is? This is really invisible. You cannot see the zippers there. But if you know that zipper is going to be used day in and day out, I would move the needle to the left or to the right, one notch, just to give that person a little bit more ease of use for pulling it up and down. And it's the kind of thing that you really need to test it according to the fabric you're using. Anybody else have any questions about that? It really is beautiful, the results that you can get. And the teeth are totally hidden from behind. If when I turn it on the side, you can kind of see it. But on the front, you don't see the teeth at all. And that's why I thought this was going to be a nice choice for this, because I didn't want you to see the zipper. I wanted it to be invisible. But if it's going to be separating, then you need to choose another choice. You're not going to find a separating invisible zipper in the stores. Now, let's look at some other kinds of projects you can do with this. Here's a couple of simple ideas. This doesn't look like much, right? I used a craft zipper to do this, and I'll talk about all the different craft zippers. This is what a craft zipper looks like, and it's got the different ends that you can put on it. So there's a lot of projects you can do by just using one side of a craft zipper. Instead of using both sides, you can use one. Now look at this. This tab is in the middle, right? I'm going to pull this back, and you can see how it can open it up. And this is nice, the yardage, because both sides can be closed up, which makes them easier to sew into place if you're going to use both pieces. Okay, we got a question. If you're putting the invisible zipper in a pillow seam, do you put the zipper in first and then finish the seam? Yes, that's exactly what you do. And that's exactly what I would do with this skirt. Now, if I knew that I had, let's say, for example, here. A lot of times when people are making skirts or pants, they will sew the seam and leave the opening for the zipper. That's one way of doing it. But sometimes it ends up not being the best way to do it, because you need to have the same seam allowance turned under for the zipper as you do for the seam. So I usually will start with the seam for the zipper and then continue the seam down in the same seam allowance. So nothing changes, and you'll get that really nice even seam. Right here you can use, I used a little more than 1/4 of an inch. It's like 3/8 of an inch. So I would need to make sure that my seam allowance in the upper part where the zipper is going would be the same thing. To make that a little bit easier, what you do is press that seam back. So then you know when you're stitching, that's the stitching line you need it to be on. All right. If you go the opposite way and put the zipper in first, it doesn't really matter too much. When it comes to the pillows, and the same thing with this pillow here. All right. You can see I've got that. It's right down here. There's my zipper. It's yellow. It totally disappears in there. You don't see it. So I sew the zipper, and I don't bring the zipper all the way to the end. I'll stop about 1 inch or 2 inches from either end. And then I'm just going to start my seam, so turn the corner, go up all the way around, and then come back to in here about 1 inch or 1.5 inches. That is much easier to do than trying to deal with the zipper in the corners. Having the zipper in the corners, it just is like, why do you want to do that? You've got all that extra bulk, and there's no reason. For my pillow, you can see here, I started it. It's about 1 inch, 1.5 inches from the edge, and then I did the same thing on the other side. And it's really pretty quick to do. Actually, a lot quicker to put a zipper in an edge of a pillow like that than to have it, on the back in the center or somewhere else. And it gives you a much more professional looking pillow too. And if you've got piping, you just need to make sure to do that in the right order. Now, we're going to talk about some projects and how you can do things in a really easy way. This is a zipper bag that I did using a crafting bag. What's really different about this is normally you would work with 2 pieces of zipper. You would have one zipper on one side and the other channel on the other. This one only works with 1 piece. You see, this here is just a completed zipper. So instead of using 2 pieces of zipper, I use 1. Basically, I just separated the zipper out, chose the color that I wanted it to be, and then I cut my fabric. Now, this is the fabric that I did. And this is a bag, a zipper bag that you can make in less than 10 minutes. Really, it is that fast. My daughter-in-law likes to make zipper bags, and she uses them for kids' snacks. You know, when they're going to school, you can buy fabric that's got like a wax finish to it, or that's a vinyl type of thing. And so with the, oh, there's a good question. I'll answer it in a second. So this was a very much a reusable project. So she made all kinds of different sizes of snack bags. And then that way you can make them smaller. You can make them whatever size you want them to be. Make them in fabric that's going to be more washable if you're washing them all the time. But as a recycling project, it was just great because now the kids come home and the bags get put away and they can add more snacks to them. But this kind of project, you can build on it and add. Obviously, you can add embroidery, you can add decorative stitches, you can add all different kinds of things, but you don't have any waste. So when I say that I took one part of the zipper and I'm not using the other part, well, with the other part, I'm going to make another bag, right? They're all using, I've got but 3 different ideas that you can use with these craft zippers. And what is so nice about them is because they have this nice big pull, the pull goes on and off very easily. So you can cut them for just the length that you need. And a lot of the quilt stores are carrying these now. There's a lot of different manufacturers of them. And you can see it'll just pull right off, and I can put it back on and it won't be a problem at all. Here's another one on the end, and I can just pull it off, and I'll show you how they go on afterwards. Okay. So I made like a step out to show you how easy this is. The best part about this bag is it only uses 2 pieces of fabric. This is the outside, and then the lining is cut exactly the same size. All right. I used a nice bright lining for this. Obviously you could reverse it, but I thought you might be able to see it. So when I was doing this, the zipper pull, I put the zipper pull on just to make sure that I realized the teeth are going to be face down on it. And all I did was sew it. And I'll show you my choices, how I figured out what foot I was going to do when I did this. And just sewed the zipper in place like that. Okay. And then once you've got that done, that's a good question, Meredith. There's a question about the pattern for the vest. It is a Vogue pattern, and I don't have it at my fingertips right now. I should have thought of that, but I will get the pattern information afterwards and post it. It is a really forgiving vest, and it looks so dramatic that when it's on, but it's very, very simple to do. And I love it. I was really surprised at how flattering it was because there's not a lot of extra fabric at the top. And the fabric as you go down, this is a little bit stiffer, so it stands out a little bit. But it would make a beautiful embroidered garment. You could do all different kinds of things with it. Okay, so here's my bag, my original bag, right? And I sewed the zipper teeth on, and then I added the lining. And I'm going to go over to the machine and show you this part of it, the next parts of it, okay? So let me come back over here. Now, I did not use an invisible zipper for this. I'm going to pull this out. I used the regular zipper foot for it because I wanted to be able to move away from the teeth. Do you see how much teeth that I have, how much black tape that I have showing? This is a decorative zipper. So the black tape becomes part of the decoration, and you don't want to have your stitching really close to the coil. So in this case, what I did, all right, was I had my fabric here like this. You can see my stitching, how far away it is, right? And then I added my lining on top. Now, usually when I'm doing this, I like to see the stitching line. And if I do it like this, I can't see the stitching line. So I always turn it over when I'm sewing the lining in. All right. And you're going to love this project, I promise you. And the nice thing is, because it's recorded, you can come back and see this again. So my edge of my E-foot, the right edge here, is right against the teeth. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my machine, and then I can choose where I want that stitch to be. Let me just close this window up here. There we go. So If I find that the needle is too close to the zipper teeth, then I can touch the plus button and move the needle. And I have lots of room with that E-foot to give me more seam allowance. And so that's what I do when I'm going to do that. And now, when I come back, when I come back here, my needle is now moved over, so I see the black stitching. So whenever I sew the first fabric on, the pink fabric, what I want is the needle to be the farthest to the right. And then when I go and add the lining, I want the needle to be closer to the teeth, so it'll hide that original stitching, right? So I can move the needle back a couple of places and decide where I want to be. And then all I'm going to do is start sewing and let the edge of the foot line up with the teeth. All right. And I can see the teeth. It's right here. That bulge is sitting up against the edge of that. If I push against it too much, then you'll see the bottom fabric is coming out. That's your sign that you're pushing the foot against the teeth too much. All right. So just let it go. You see, I'm not working at this at all, really. I'm just letting it go and do its job. And now I'm almost down. All right. Now, watch this. This is magical. You're going to love this. Okay, so there is my lining, right? And my right piece. So I only have 2 pieces of fabric here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the zipper pull into place. So let me get a zipper pull. Let me see. I have some extra zipper pulls here. Here's the zipper pull. And when you're looking at a zipper pull, there's a rounded end. Let me see if I can come up there closer to the camera. There's a rounded end at the top. I know. I'll go to the other camera and do that. All right. So see that has a rounded end, and the other end is a square bottom. So you're going to put the zipper teeth in the rounded end. And I usually like to bring it together. Remember, the pink is the outside. So I'll bring them together, and I'm going to put them on. First one side. Usually one side is shorter than the other. What's important is you want both of these edges to line up together like this. So usually you're going to cut one end shorter than the other. And then you're going to put the other side in. And I won't worry about it too much. I'll just put it in so that you can see the width. And see how easy that came into place? So this is the last step. And then you've got a bag made. So you want the zipper to not be closed. But I'm going to close it so you can see what happens. See on the other end? It closes up completely. It gives you a beautiful finished edge. And when you open it, there's no extra seam in there. So once you're at this point, all you're going to do is you're going to put the right sides together. So this is the outside and this is the lining. You're going to sew along the bottom, all right, all the way up. And then you're going to leave an opening in the middle, about 3 or 4 inches, something like that. When you're working like that, that's going to be where you're going to turn it right side out. So this is my finished bag, and I'll have it, I'm going to pull it right side out so you can see it. The bears and the pattern for the quilt that you're seeing behind me over there, those designs came from the Ruby 90. So anybody that has the Ruby 90, you have all of those designs. There is actually a quilt pattern out there that does applique trees and the cabins. It looks different from mine, but it is available on the website. And maybe Meredith can find the link to that. Mine is a little bit different. And but I think everybody's could look completely different if you just play around with it. All right, so there's my bag. there's the opening that I've left the hole in, right there. And so all I did was turn it right side out, and I have a finished bag that I just need to close the hole for. So this, what's neat about this technique is, if you think about it, all right, you can box the bottoms if you want to make a clutch that would stand up. Use some cork, use some marine vinyl, use some pretend faux leather or real leather, and you can make yourself a really nice purse. This literally took not more than 10 minutes to sew start to finish. And if you're into making projects or gifts for the holidays, this is the kind of thing that it looks really impressive, but it really didn't take you hardly any time to do it. Obviously, if you're going to embroider on it, you're going to add a lot more detail to it. But this is kind of just the start of the idea of what you can do with zippers. Here I have on my arm, this was a zipper that was made. And this, you'll find the information on how to do this in the blog. So I'll unsnap it so you can see. This is taking two pieces of the same zipper and putting them together so that the teeth are on opposite sides and the tape are together. If you're looking for the instructions on this, you can find this on the blog that's in most of the machines that have the Wi-Fi compatibility. The instructions on how to make are there. I'll show you where it is so you can see where to go. There was a question about most of the craft zippers are metal teeth. So that is not true. Actually, it might have been true 5 years ago, but right now, by far the majority of the craft zippers have a, I don't know what it is, but it's not metal. It's like a plastic coil. And so it makes it really, really easy. I'm going to show you how you can sew over it to prevent any breaking and stuff. But you don't have to worry about these being metal. The craft zippers that are out there, all of these, this is a plastic coil, or maybe there's some other material in it, but it's not metal. So that is, I think, something that's really changed in the industry. It used to be that we only had metal for the zipper teeth, for those bigger ones. And now it's changed so dramatically. We've got all these beautiful color zippers. I have some gold zipper. I'm not sure. Oh, here's some gold zipper. Look at how beautiful this is. And it comes with these gorgeous gold pulls for it too. You'll have a lot of zippers now that even have Swarovski crystals on it. And there's just so much variety. So, stop into your local craft store and see if they have anything. And if not, tell them you're interested in it. Maybe, they could create a couple of classes. So who knows where that's going to go. Here's another where I put the two tapes together. And this time I use the Spanish hem stitch. So there's actually a gap that you can see between them. All right. That is a space in between there. Now, these could be really nice cuffs. Think about how if you wanted to add this on a shirt, you can add this on a shirt. It washes perfect. Or you could make chokers. A lot of times chokers are comfortable and popular with some people. But the idea that you can use this to create all kinds of craft ideas is really unbelievable. Now, the way that you can make these, you can put the zippers together. You'll see a lot of zipper bags where you put a tie on and then it's sewed together. And I have an example of that. In this one, it was fabric. Okay, so let me show you what happens. We're running out of time, 10 minutes. All right, so all this was a piece of fabric. This happened to be a vinyl, like kind of a shiny vinyl, and I haven't lined it yet. But when I did it, the zipper started down here. All right. So it's one piece of zipper and it sewed all the way around the other side, back up, and then came back to the same place. And then I put the zipper pull on. And after I put the zipper pull on, then I cut away the tag that's there, the leftover zipper. And now when it zips, look what it does. It makes all these funky shapes. And you can do the same thing just with zippers by themselves. All right. And this is an eyeglass case. This is a perfect size. If you want to know the size for this, I cut this fabric 2.5 inches by about, I don't know, I think it was 22 inches, something like that. I'll write down the exact size if anybody's interested. But this is perfect for an eyeglass case. Look at that. And then I can take my glasses back so I can see. Now, here is the same type of shape, right? Except it's wider and narrower, and it makes a completely different type of thing. So here I started with just that piece, and I rounded the edges of them. With this one here, it is much wider, and instead of the zipper being down at one end, I moved it more toward the center. And every time you move the zipper where you start, it will give you a different shape. So I didn't know what shape I was going to get with this till I was done. But this is an example. Look at my seam. Do you see there's very, very little black tape showing here, right? So when I start pulling it together, the lining tends to get caught in the zipper. Right here, it's caught. Now, I can solve that problem by going in and top stitching and keeping the fabric away from the teeth. But if you don't want to do that, make sure that you move your needle so that you have more of the tape showing, because this was a bad example of what not to do, because I'm always getting the lining. So look at that shape, completely different. Now this one, I just have regular batting in them, but you can put the inner form, you can put all kinds of different things. And by just changing the height and the width of the fabric and where you start the zipper, it'll give you a completely different results. And you never know what you're going to get, but they are fun and easy to do, and they don't really take much time to do it. Now, in this case, I did put the lining in, right? And the lining was just a matter of going over, just like I did when I did the lining for that purse. Very, very easy to do. But there are so many different gift ideas you can play around with. And the craft zippers, because of the way that you can add the pull on it, you can get really experimental with what you're doing and get some really kind of cool looks to the projects you're doing. Now, here's an example. I'm just going to pull this one over here. This is a knapsack I'm making, and I've actually started this quite a while ago. And here is the front panel of the knapsack. So here I just did a simple zipper. All right. But again, I left a lot of the tape showing as part of the design. And because when you do that, you know you're not going to have any trouble with the lining getting caught, and it becomes part of the decoration. Now, if I was going to do the zipper for the top, I'm going to use the purse zipper for the top part. Remember the one that had the two zippers in it? Because then when I'm opening it, I can open one and the other one at the same time. But a lot of the projects that are out there now incorporate zippers into them. I've got a couple of others that I'll show you, and hopefully we have enough time to see some of the others. But one of the things to know when you're evaluating what zipper you're going to use, the invisible zippers are beautiful and you cannot see them, but they are not as strong as a traditional zipper. So the ones that you buy, you know, the Coats and Clarks in the package, or the ones that have the thicker tape, their coils are stronger than an invisible zipper. And almost all of these have nylon in them. So when you are doing anything, when you're ironing a project, after you've done your project and you want to iron it, or you're doing an invisible zipper, you need to be very aware that these teeth are mostly made out of nylon and they will melt. And imagine putting your whole project together and getting it done, and then you put the iron on it and you melt the teeth. So that's one of the best tips you're going to get today, is make sure that you don't put your iron on these teeth, because it's really, you've gone to too much work to do. So just be very careful to put your iron down on a lower setting and iron your project from the back, so your iron's not coming into direct contact with the teeth of those of your zipper. Okay. And it's true of most of these. Most of these teeth are made of nylon, and they will melt if you've got too much heat on them. We have a question. Is there any information on how the flowers were made from the zipper pieces? The flowers. Oh, you mean these flowers here? I think these are the flowers. I think this is the only flowers I've shown. And I'm usually a flower person, so that's you might see normally most of them. Really, all I did for this was I gathered this with the gathering foot, and the edges are raw edges. I cut them so that they're not on the bias, they're cut on the straight of the grain, and then I gathered them with the gathering foot and sewed the button on with the buttonhole foot to the button foot to sew the buttons on. So that was just a cute little project. I guess it's upside down here. And then there's some sequin stitches that you'll see here and some applique stitches. And it was just like a really fun thing to do. The sequin stitches, you'll find them on many of our machines. So it's starting to be that we have a lot of machines that have all these creative, really fun stitches on them. So and then there are some projects here. I think this project was originally done by Vanessa, and I could be wrong about it, but I believe she's the one who wrote that project up. But I just love the technique for the zipper. It just became part of the design, and the zipper ended up, you could have made the zipper any color you want to, and then adding the stitches really just kind of kept that going. And so somebody's asking, is there a pattern or instructions to make the eyeglass case? No, but really, all it is a piece of fabric that's 2.5 inches, and you start the zipper about 2.5 inches down there. I'll take a picture of it, and I will write the dimensions of what this is. But you should experiment with all the different sizes, right? Because you could make big bags, small bags. And the other thing you can do is if you start the zipper off, say you have a piece of zipper like this, right? You can put the pull on it, and then you can sew, pull the zipper up, and then the zipper tape can sew to itself. And so you can create projects like this that will zip up like the eyeglass case by just using the zipper tape and with the zipper. And you don't even need any fabric, and that'll give you a whole different look. And if you're interested, there's all kinds of patterns online. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's written a book or something somewhere. But I really think it's just a fun, easy project of things you can do. You could use kids' fabric. You can use all different kinds of things. The one thing I did want to tell you is that before we go, is that when I was sewing this, because it's a really kind of like flashy vinyl, it's got some nice shine to it. It's all silver. And I top stitched the zipper down so the raw edges were out of the way. And I was getting really little stitches. And the reason for that is with my zipper foot, was the metal bottom, right? Now we do have a foot that's called the no slip foot. It's the number H, and it comes with most people's machines, but that might not have given me the ability to have my needle where I wanted. So when you buy a machine, a lot of you have a little bag that has all of these different things in it, all the different feet and stuff. There is usually 2 different pieces. This is called a non-slip glide plate. And there's 2 of them that come with your machine. Almost all of the machines come with them. And these are meant to put onto the bottom of your foot. So I could have put this on the bottom of my E foot, and then the fabric would not stick to the plastic, and I would have gotten my regular stitch length. So sometimes when we're doing a project and we see that we're not getting the results that we want, it's not anything to do with the machine. It's that we are we're not using the right tools to get the results that we want. All right, somebody wants to see, this is the last thing I'll do. Somebody wants to see how you go over that zipper. All right, so let me find my one. Here is my one right here. All right, so I'm going to sew this up, and I'm going to come over the zipper. Now, there's the zipper, right? All I usually do is just fold it like that when I'm sewing over it. All right, so I'm going to go over to my machine, and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. Now, I'm not using the zipper foot when I'm doing this. I'm using my regular A foot. Okay. And when I'm sewing, let me just line this up so I can get this going here. I'm going to be on stitch number 2. All right. And I'm same thing. Remember, this is a bag, so it's different than sewing a quilt together. I'm going to go forward, and then I'm going to go back. All right. And then I'm going to come forward. I'm on a bouncy table, so I can't sew too fast. Now, I usually like to stop with my needle down so I can turn and pivot. And then I'm just going to come up to the next seam. Now, as I'm going to where the zipper part is, I'm just coming into it right now. Just check to make sure everything's lined up. Now, there are people that charge right through this, right, where the seam of the zipper is. A lot of times, if you're going to break a zipper, it's not because you're charging through it. It's because you're pulling the fabric at the same time you're trying to sew it. So when I come up to the teeth, what I usually do is just go one stitch at a time, because I'm like most of you. I don't want to take too many stitches, right? I just come down and I'll go down like that. All right. One stitch at a time. Then I can feel confident that I'm not pushing and pulling. You see there, it went through the zipper, didn't break the needle, and then I'm through. So you don't have to charge through. But the other thing that's important is don't be pushing or pulling the fabric. If you just go through like that, one stitch at a time, perfectly, with no problem at all. And if you want to, if you're not feeling confident the first time you do it, is as you get to the zipper part, turn your hand wheel towards you, one complete stitch. And if you feel any resistance, you can move it or adjust it. Then do that until you're past that, the actual teeth of it. If you're not confident, that is an easy way to do it. You're not turning your hand wheel backwards. You're always doing it. Turn your hand wheel forward, turn your hand wheel forward, turn your hand wheel forward. Usually within 3 stitches, you're past the teeth. And that way, if you're a little bit intimidated, it's a way of doing it without feeling like you've got to charge and go over it. I would honestly say that in 99% of the time, if you break a needle going over a zipper like that, it's because as you're going, you're stressed and you're pushing the fabric, thinking I gotta get by it. Instead, just let the machine do the work and have the needle come down, and you'll be fine. And give it a try. It's, I tend to be a little careful with my needles because needles are expensive. I don't like to waste them. So I just go over it slowly, and I make sure that everything's going to be fine, and you'll be fine too. So I will put down the dimensions for this. Look for the notes in the comments. I'll put the directions down size-wise of what you need and where you need to start the zipper at the end. And you can come back and watch this too. And if I get around to it, I'll make a little video of it. I'm not sure if I'll have time in the next little while, but sometime I will do that so that you'll have a video too. But give it a chance to see that, what kind of projects you can make. And you'd be amazed the projects. Imagine if this was quite a bit longer and the fabric was taller. You could make something, maybe for knitting needles, or it could be if you make the fabric wider and shorter, then it gives you a completely different type of project. So if anybody tries it, I'd love you to post a picture and show me. And thank you all for joining me today. And I hope to see you again soon. I'm out starting to travel doing events now, so I'm getting to see some of you in person, and that's the best ever. So hopefully one day I'll get to see all of you again in person. But in the meantime, I hope you start playing with your zippers and do something creative. So thanks a lot. It was nice seeing y'all. Bye-bye.